Hello, welcome to Rise and Shine with Alissa. I am your hostess, the consultress, and I am here to have awesome conversations with amazing people that are in my orbit, in my sphere, and some of the most talented and amazing professionals that you'll find out there in this ever-evolving world. Rise and Shine is a series that aims to deliver valuable conversations that are both honest and open while we all experience today's evolution. There is no new normal. And what was normal anyway? So here I am today with my very, very dear friend, John Kiss, and we have known each other for more than a decade. He is an entrepreneur extraordinaire, artist, producer, and provider of value. So John, thanks so much for joining me here in this conversation today. How the hell are you?
I'm doing very well. Thank you so much for having me here, and thank you for the invitation. I'm quite honored to be interviewed by you, Alissa. Thank you.
My pleasure. It is my extreme pleasure. When we met, we were studying personal development under Jack Canfield's Train the Trainer program. And since then, you have launched multiple businesses and you have lived kind of an extraordinary life of progressions. I have seen multiple evolutions of this guy right here. I've been proud to be on the editing team for some of your books. So, tell me what is the most awesome thing about you and your creativity that's going on right now?
Apart from being with you, which is what's most awesome right now, I am really trying to take the joy that I have felt over the years in writing and publishing my own books and taking it to the next level and helping others do the same. I have been doing it over the past few years, but not at the level that I want to. And right now I am excited about helping others express their own creativity and tell their own stories in compelling, moving, passionate ways.
I think I love that compelling and passionate ways. Sometimes I think what you're aiming at sounds like autobiographies, or it may sound like narrative. And so many times I feel like people who want to write their story get very stuck. So how do you help to bring joy to the process and also to deliver that kind of product for someone as an experience, but also as a finished product?
I think that the greatest miracle that happened to me when it came to book writing was that I always had an audience in mind, and that I always shared my book live while I was writing it. Sometimes I even would share my screen and invite people in. So it was a very collaborative process for me, and that's what I learned works not only for me, but for most human beings. We are not all very oriented towards writing, but we are all oriented towards writing, talking, being oral, writing in spoken word. And I think that that has been the best realization. And that's what I try to create for people who are collaborating with us, with my company, and basically trying to help them to tell their story. Now, you asked about joy, and you're spot on, Alissa. It's all about joy. And the way we recreate this joy again and again, day in and day out, is that we invite people for an interview. And we always make sure that the interviews are just like the finest energy, the finest frequency, and that there is love in the interview. So just like you prepped me for the meeting today, what we do is we prep the person and we tell them that there's no judgment. Nothing that they will say will be held against them. Nothing that they will not want in the manuscript will not end up in the manuscript. And we basically interview them. That eventually that those interviews will be based as the transcription for the first manuscript of the book. And that tool is just amazing. So we are able to squeeze books out of people that never thought that they would write a book. They kind of hoped, they tried many times, but through interviewing them again and again, like 20 plus interviews, we're able to do that. And that for me has been a life calling and a great source of joy for me to see people being able to hold their finished book and to call themselves published authors and to influence people around the world.
So to that end, I need to ask, I have like burning desire questions here. What would you say, if you reflected on your own readership, what kind of stories have really inspired you where you were on the receiving end of some kind of book that really spoke to you? Had that person not published it, your life trajectory may have been different.
Yeah, so maybe let's pick a couple if that's okay. So
As many as you like. We want to know how and why.
So when I was 17, I was in college and I was very lonely. It was a college that was abroad. I was born in Israel, born and raised, but at 17, I boarded an airplane and flew to Canada. And I studied in Vancouver, on Vancouver Island. And I was very lonely at times. There were no Israelis, no Jews that I could speak to. I felt just very lonely. And it was during the Iraq war, the war in Iraq, and the US was criticized on campus, and Israel was criticized a lot on campus. So I felt when people were criticizing Israel, they were criticizing me. And I just felt very, constantly attacked day in and day out in my own room with my own roommates in every class. It was then that I stumbled upon Chicken Soup for the Teenage Soul. And in that book, the authors basically shared stories, real stories from the pens of true teenagers. And those adolescence experiences really helped me to feel that I'm not alone, to feel that someone was experiencing the same emotions, that I need to kind of stick through it, that there is always a silver lining, and that it made me feel connected. And I remember crying, reading, and I remember like feeling my heartbeat, because there was lots of talk about bullying, and lots of conversations in the book about social expectations and social pressure. And I think that was really, really important for me. And that book changed my life, really. It made me feel more, stronger in who I am, and to believe in myself, and to understand that I do not need to please everyone, because, that was a very futile, tiring journey in college to try and, be liked by everyone. Some people,
I have to say that is a universal human experience, that act of externalizing our value, trying to people please in order that we should be accepted. It's pointing us in the direction of self-acceptance, right? That now we know, as evolved and more mature individuals, that's really what that essence is trying to tell you. But when you're inside of that, nobody likes me, everybody hates me, I'm gonna go eat worms. That I can joke about it now, but I had a real feeling also, younger, when I was in early adulthood, also, early parenting, wondering if I would be accepted, wondering, and a few of the books for me that made an impact. I feel like reading your book, The Two Marias, really helped me to conceptualize and take myself out of judgment and rational thinking, but the way that you wrote it was from a very human experience. And so even though it was a very widely recognized, well-known time frame of strife and conflict, I was able to see myself in a friendship in that book that allowed me to see both characters, as the giver and as the provider, the protector, and also as the receiver and someone who is being taken care of. So, thank you for writing that book, because whether you realize it or not, right? And just like maybe those teens who were penning their stories in the Chicken Soup for the Teenage Soul, they didn't realize that they were going to impact people they never ever met or maybe ever would meet. And I think that brings us back to part of what I know of you, of why you are up to building the kind of business that you're building, because that impact, you and I just both had individual experiences of how a book, influenced who we were and who we became, and was able to kind of see ourselves in someone else. So thank you for the work that you do, number one. But you said that there were many books that influenced you. So what else? I'm like, I really want to know.
Thank you for mentioning the two Marias, and I write a book. I'm totally invested in it, and then I release it to the world, and then it's gone, and it's nice to hear back from the book that I gave birth to, and that you helped me to deliver, and I appreciate those words. It really is a very I really love that book. I love all of my books, but it's so nice to hear that it impacted you. That really moves me. Thank you for saying that. So yeah, just tons of books. If I could speak about books in general, I would say that books saved me. I was even in my elementary school, I was often lonely, often felt disconnected. I think that I was a little girl in the body of a boy. And I think it was very difficult for me because I was very feminine, and all of my friends were girls. And I insisted on growing my hair long like the girls, and talking like the girls, and playing all the games like the girls without doing any sports. I liked dancing. I was just a very girly boy, if not to say girl trapped in a boy's body. And I think that books never judged me, and books always talked to me at an eye level, and they gave me they helped me to get out of my own experience and out of my own suffering, and to see other people's suffering, and to see other people's triumphs. And I really loved children books, teenage books, YA books, before there was even like a category, YA. So I loved all young adult books, Judy Blume and the likes. I really enjoyed that. And I just think that books really have a redeeming power to them. Even today, when people, there's a lot of podcasts and YouTube channels and radio shows and posts and there are many ways to kind of get your message across, and I love them all. But I think that when you open a book, you know that the person really dedicated a big chunk of their life to try and distill and to crystallize and to clarify what it is that they want to say. Whether it is a nonfiction book, autobiography, like you mentioned, memoir, self-help, or even in fiction, like you feel like effort was put there. And that is a big contract between the author and the reader. Like the reader feels that the author put their heart into it. So it feels to me always very special. I'm looking now behind my computer. There are a few new books that I got from Amazon, and I'm excited to read them. And it feels like like the best gift to myself.
Mm-hmm. So I have developed that same gift. I was a reluctant reader because when I was growing up, I was, told that I was very intellectual, very smart, but when it came to reading, I was, a little bit further behind than the accelerated kids. Even in college, I feel like I learned grammar my junior year of college. I was like, oh my God, it makes sense now. But where was I going with that? Hang on, gotta pull the train back onto the track.
Slow to the party of reading.
Yeah, and I had to read for school. I had to read for the grades. I had to read for, which, I'm more about this. I'd rather be face-to-face in the classroom, just like my daddy always said. He's like, as long as you're in class and you can talk with the teacher, like the material comes alive. And I took that to heart because all of the stuff that I was reading was all for a purpose. It wasn't until my late 20s that I realized I didn't have to read books for a reason. I could just read them just because. Wow. And I discovered literature very, very late in life. You're supposed to discover literature in English class or in, Lit 101. And I never really did. I was like, okay, this is an assignment, and I derived value from it all. But the joy of reading didn't come to me till I was almost 30. And I realized I didn't have to always read the business books at that point. I didn't have to read all the manuals, right? I could just read. And so The Witch of Blackbird Pond and Where the Red Fern Grows, some of the stuff that we're supposed to read very early in our upbringing scholastically, finally, I felt the desire to read them. And now, today, I am very proud to say it's coming up on almost 1 full year due to this awesome book called The Greatest Salesman in the World by Og Mandino. I now have a 3 times a day reading habit. And it's reading first thing in the morning, reading in the middle of the day for that pause or that refresh, and then at night, reading something out loud that I've already previously read. So I'm actually training my attention in this way. Reading has become a sanctuary for me now, where early in my life, it was like a chore and a mandate. And now I find it to be like an act of self-care.
Beautifully put, which is, this is the intention, I think, an act of self-care, like you were saying. That's really inspiring, and well done on not sealing the deal on your reading habits and trying to, expand and being willing to grow even at an age when, supposedly we're out of school, supposedly we cannot change. So that's kudos for you.
We're never done learning. If there is anything that I learned, my friend, being a trainer of human potential, it was that we are literally never done learning. So that push and pull sometimes that we experience of having to arrive, and that the carrot keeps moving or that goal line keeps moving out and forward, it sometimes creates that feeling of lack or not good enough. I have now leaned 100% fully into the fact that, like, I am going to be surprised and delighted every single day to learn something that I didn't know before. And I have released the pressure of having to have already figured it out or to seem perfect to anyone else. Like, again, that externalizing, flipping it on its head and using external for affirmation rather so than validation. And being a lifelong learner has allowed me to find joy in the journey rather so than a pursuit of achievement. And if you fall short of anything but perfect, a la me of the past, it was a disappointment and a reason to beat myself up. And I'm still working that out. I won't say that I have that nailed, but the idea here is when you take in new information, you become a new person. And books, to me and to you, it sounds like, have been that input that allowed us to alchemize and come out of the other side of that book cover an altered person.
Yeah, totally.
Just like to take a moment of silence. Let that
marinate.
Yeah,
and in honor of books, in honor of human knowledge being transposed, transmitted in a, through time and space, like thousands of years. Some books, thousands of years. Some stories, thousands of years. What a joy,
And before we wrap, what is the most ancient book that has impressed you? Impressed upon you, the oldest book that you have read?
So I'm trying to think of something other than the Bible. So recently I've discovered Otis. And Otis actually wrote about romantic relationships 2,000 years ago, and about courting. And I was like, oh my God, how come I only now discover this? So that's been something that I've been recently reading, the 2,000 years old text about, marriage, courting, relationships. Very interesting, quite misogynist, but interesting. Some really interesting things. Like in 2,000 years ago, I don't know. It's so strange for me. Like a self-help manual 2,000 years ago. So that's been really good. And I would say that in the Bible and in the Talmud, there are some really good lessons, especially in the Jewish Talmud. I find that there is something called Pirkei Avot. I'm not sure. Yeah, it says Pirkei Avot in Wikipedia, and there it's basically one quote after another. It's basically like quote of of like great life lessons, really. So it's just it's like a book of quotes, quite inspiring, I must tell you. So yeah, I have a dream of one day taking it and distilling it into a series, like an encyclopedia of life values, like similar to Ray Dalio's principles, or to Dale Carnegie's How to Win Friends and Influence People. Like these are like life lessons, but 2,000 years old. I really want to take them and break them down. So
Awesome. I mean, I see you. Go ahead.
What about you and like an older book?
I mean, I'm still trying to work my way through this one, The Richest Man in Babylon. I know it's got some great pieces, but the way that it's written, it's hard. I have to read like a sentence and then and then another sentence and then pause. So this I like, but I also love reading excerpts from the Stoics. I find that Stoic philosophy and even philosophical texts in general, like Plato's Republic, these are things that I use to discuss the nature of life with my children, and also to get very fluid in conversations where our mind tends to get really stuck. Just use these principles to be able to.
Yeah, I can the picture to you on Slack. Can you try again?
Okay, wait.
We are being visited by another meeting, I think. So let me do this now and just say.
No, it's good. I turned it off and I'm totally with you. I apologize for that.
That's okay. Hey, life happens. These are one take. That's it. So you're a busy entrepreneur and I will be letting you go here soon. But again, for the fact that, reading is something that helps to grow yourself as a person and give you a new perspective. I think that's our biggest message here. And if you need to find John, you can go to yourbookteam.com and see what he's up to. Thank you for joining me here today for this Rise and Shine. I'm sure you'll be back with other wisdom to share in another episode or two down the road. So thank you for having me. To all of our watchers and viewers, check out our tags. Come see us, give us a like, subscribe, and come hang out. You can find us on all our social media. So with that, I will say adios to our viewing audience. And John, just hang on here because we've got some stuff to take care of after this video. Stay tuned.